Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Trader Minutes. Great to have you aboard. I'm Carl. Thanks for tuning in. Still morning here, but afternoon for most of you. And you look at the futures here, the market, they got a little bit choppy early on through this area right here, but since just calmed down. We're in that time of day where not a lot's going on. Things will start picking up here in another hour or so. Let's see what going on into the close today. For the market to break down below right about this area here, around the 1786 mark. I might see a little bit more of a downturn to it. It's just a slightly pulling back a little bit right now. So the market, fairly flat, not much going on out there today. We were looking at our position there on MRO. It's been like this now for what, a couple hours, just right here. So we'll watch this into the close today. Yeah, you could call that a gravestone doji. We'll look at that in the close and see if it's still there and decide what we want to do with it if that is the case. But right now, nothing to worry about here. Still up 27 cents on the day. Okay, if you guys have some stocks you want me to take a look at, try refreshing Darren if you can hear me. Chat him in there. I'm going to just spend a minute here and we're going to talk about controlling risk. And the challenge is all about controlling risk. When I first, I've known Jeff now for quite a while. I've known it for a couple years before he even started these challenges in the fund he was managing. And when he told me he was going to do this challenge, and okay, Jim, thanks. Uh, my immediate thoughts was take 3,000, turn it into 100. My first thought was, wow, it's got to be ultra aggressive trading. And you might have all thought that too when you first heard about it. But when I knew Jeff, he's not an ultra aggressive trader. He's very ever since I've known him, he knows when to get in, knows when to get out, and he's always controlling risk. And so I knew there had to be a methodology behind it as to what he was planning on doing with it. And the more I looked into it, the more it made sense to me. Yeah, start with 3,000. That's the great thing about options. If we're starting with 3,000, what do we have at risk? Well, any type of investing, right? With 3,000, we have 3,000 at risk in the challenge. Okay? So that's one way to control the risk from a overall picture. Okay, but then it comes down to individual trades, and because that's what the challenge is about, right? Making a series of individual trades, and so we got to control the risk on every one of our trades. That's what even makes the challenge possible. Is controlling the risk. If you blow your account out early, it's game over pretty fast. So we're very selective in the stocks that we look at. Jeff was looking at Tesla early on. We were talking about Tesla for the first trade, but there was always that, it's one of those companies that's talked about quite a bit now in the media. One little blip and positive news on it could have taken it higher. And so that's, we've steered away from Tesla. Um, but when we jump into a trade, when you're trading options, you can control your risk, right? By setting a stop. And when we get into a trade, as we make these trades, you're always going to hear us talk about our thoughts behind the entrance. You're going to hear us talk about the area of the price target and then also the stop. And we'll have priced the options and we'll say, all right, well, if the stock hits our price target, we'll make about X percentage. And typically that's going to be somewhere between 80 to 100 maybe more percent. Yet if it hits our stop, we'll have priced that out as well. We'll know that we're going to be in the somewhere between normally the 25 to 30% range. Okay, that's going in. Now, if you want to know how to price the options, Jeff gave a good class on this during the Education Week. It's up there in the Education Week videos, just above the chat feature. You see options education. We can click there. You'll see it on options pricing. Gave a good class on that. Not going to get into all the details on that right here. Okay, but let's take Lennar. It got the upgrade today. It jumped up, and so Yeah, gaps higher above our stop. So let me go back in. Let me go into, all right, let me go in here to Trader Minute, just into the live trade seat. All right, I'm going to pull down and come down here to trades, and I'm going to go here to the closed 100,000 trades, 100,000 challenge trade. I'm going to click on the top one there, Lennar. This is the first trade of our new challenge. All right. So you can talk about the entry, where we got in, what we paid, but over here you'll be able to see what the risk target was. Okay, that's our stop. The risk target, that's our stop, was 35. And where did the stock go this morning? Well, it gapped over 35 and was running at the time. Okay, so we knew if the stock hits our risk, uh, the target there as far as our stop, if the stock hits the stop, we knew going into it was about a 30% loss is what we were willing to accept there. Okay, and you look out at what we actually closed at, it was about a 36% loss. If you go back to the prior page, I'll get there in a second. It was about a 36% loss. Why was it a little bit more? Well, there's various factors that can go into play, such as when it gaps over our stop. I mean, there's no way we could have got out right at 35 as it was hitting 35 because it gapped well over that. So in a situation like that, things change a little bit. We didn't want to take any chances based on an upgrade. It could keep on going. Um, and so we jumped out of the trade with control the risk as much as we could. Now we still got 60% of that money that we had going into this trade, 60% of it's still there that we can put into another trade. Okay. Now, the price target for this was down there in the 32 to the $31 range. So once it got down to the 32 range, we were going to watch it and it looked like it might close a little bit strong or something today. Just get out. If it looked weak down in those ranges, we might hold on to it a little bit more, but we weren't going to hold on to it much further past really 32. And at that level right there, we could have made, if it would have hit that, would have been a close to 100% gain. Again, based on the Black-Scholes calculator and the option pricing and putting that down, pricing the options down there at 32 to the 31 range. So about 90% at 32, with over 100% of it got down into the $31 range. Okay, so with these type of losses, and let me back out here. With the small losses, you can see, go back to this page just to show you. So it was about a $366 loss, which is a 36%. $366 loss, which is about a 36% loss overall on that one trade. Okay, but if we get one good trade that works for us and hits our price target, 90, 100%, you can see how the smaller losses like this, the ones that we were willing to accept going into the trade and having it planned it all out, how those can be erased really fast. The challenge we did starting of March of this year, our first trade, it was on Visa. I remember it well. We were up on the trade, and then they came out and got upgraded, and we had puts. Kind of the same thing that happened with Lennar. They got upgraded. Visa went up, went beyond our stop. We got out, and then we had a series of winning trades. And about a month and a half into it, the account, don't quote me on the exact time frame, it's about a month and a half to 2 months into it. The account was sitting, I saw mine hit 12,000. Jeff always says around 10. I saw mine hit 12, and he was usually a little bit better than higher up there than me. So, but we pulled out the original three. But all it takes is a series. Give couple good trades that hit our price, our target, and you see how this challenge can take off. And once we get a little bit of momentum like that, nothing really changes. Okay, now there are times like in that first challenge, and a lot of you remember this well. We got into trade on CLF. It's an easy one to remember. That was one of these all or nothing trades that you hear Jeff talk about sometimes. We'll talk about them here from time to time. We don't do a lot of them. We'll do them when we got a lot of profits built in. And at the time, the account was sitting at about $10,000. All right, and then CLF presented itself. And it was an all or nothing trade. So obviously we got the questions, well, hey, how are you controlling your risk here if this is an all or nothing trade? What are you doing? And we were doing weekly options, it was all there. as far as an all or nothing trade. Well, what we did is traded much less than we normally would have. In a situation like that, in a challenge trade, we might put 30% or more, maybe 50% of the account, well, about 30% of the account at that point into one trade. Okay, what we do? Well, we invested much less. We invested about 10% of the account into that one trade, about $1,000, and that trade worked out. But that's even if you're doing an all or nothing trade, you can control the risk by simply buying much less. Okay, so uh, going into the challenge, um, again, it sounds pretty aggressive, but the more you're with us, the more you stick with us, the more you see how it's. We're always trying to control the risk. The only time you can't is when stocks gap against you. Sometimes you get stocks that gap way over your price target, and that's great when it happens, but then sometimes they can gap against you. And then it puts you in another situation like, well, geez, we're down here now, and that you got to look at where you're at the time and decide what you want to do. Luckily, this morning it wasn't that far over our exit, so we just got out and took the loss. It wasn't much more than what we were expecting uh, if it had gone against us anyways. All right, so yeah, everything's still looking good for the challenge. MRO still going our way. Okay. Some stocks. I know the chat's been going like crazy. I saw some go in there. Let me just review and see where we're at. Okay. Let's take a look at Gilead. Oops, wrong screen. Let me go out here to Gilead. Yeah, Gilead Sciences. I'm sure, Steve, you're out there. You know this well, I'm sure. Um, nice little breakout today. This is one of those situations. Let me look at this through the vibe. Okay, this is you'll see. We'll talk about these from time to time, and there are opportunities where you can anticipate this. Yesterday, it triggered a bull vibe signal. I zoomed in on it here a little bit. So with the bull vibe, we've got all of the averages rising, right? And we got today, we can see the rock here, the ROC, breaking up through zero. Now, yesterday, it gapped up, well, it opened pretty flat and ran up towards the close pretty close to the highs. This is one of those where you can anticipate a break. Of course, I'm looking at hindsight, so yeah, you can definitely have anticipated this one. But where you can see the first time, this is one of those deals where we talked a little bit about retesting. Well, now this is off of earnings, or this gap right here, a little bit unfair, off of likely an earnings announcement or some type of good news there in October, late October. Okay, so it's coming up on 70, one of those big round numbers. It broke it, came back to retest it, and it failed. Now we're coming up on it again. And this time, you can see we had some pretty steady volume going right through this time frame right here as it's pushing up. Some pretty strong and just some pretty strong, steady volume move going up into this move. So what that did yesterday is increase the odds a little bit that the breakthrough might happen. Today's action, nice breakthrough. The volumes, yeah, they might be fairly average coming up in here. Maybe not as much as in this time frame, but this look back here, the last week or so of those heavy volumes is going to help propel this thing up into higher levels. I'd like to see the earnings announcement, but and what that was, but the sell-off here and a move higher is very bullish for the stock. Yeah, I like the price action here. This could run up, breaking 70 here on some decent volumes here in the past. It might consolidate a little bit around the 70 mark. It might come back a little bit slightly, or it might just keep going. Right here, we're about, see, it's about 60. It's about $2 above the 7, which isn't, the stock in this price range isn't that big a deal. But I wouldn't be surprised to see a little bit of consolidation. Um, but yeah, very bullish move right now in Gilead. And if I missed some stocks, I know there was some that when I first got on, and then the chat, just let me know if you want to look, chat them back in if it went too high for me to look at there. Wow, eBay, big move down today. I haven't looked at the news on this, or is any type of news. A lot of times there is. There's some pretty heavy volume there today. A big breakdown like that. The Yeah, this is one of those deals where, the seven's way up here around just over 52. It's about $2 away. Those big candles right there, to me, they blow the technicals for a while. There's a lot of support right around here at 50 and a half, but I'd want to dig into the news on that and see if there's what might be driving it down today. But there is, again, there could be some support here at 50 and a half, but depending on the news, that may or may not hold. Okay. Martin, I'll look into it. Based on that action right there, what I'd look for is something that maybe hasn't quite had that breakout. But I'll be this is the time of day I really starting to go through. A lot of the signals start to come in about this time of day and going through a bunch of more stocks here when I get off this video. Yeah, it's a good looking chart. And then Facebook. All right, now with Facebook, they hit the high back over in this range, and then watch what's happened here. Over here, they start going below the 7. Now, do you trust that move right there? Well, hindsight, you say, you definitely, man, we could have rode that all the way down here. No, you don't trust that move because it's just the first little move back below the 7, and all the averages are rising at the time. So you're not trusting that. Okay? What you're watching for is it to start pushing higher off of the 7. Okay, but then there's a pretty big number that comes into play here. You got 50. Okay, it broke 50. It's one of those big numbers. Now it came back to retest it. Did the retest hold? No. And it's been bouncing off of 50. You can see how it broke through 50 in this range, right around this, and then it came back to retest it this one day here. And I forget the news on that day. There was some news out on Facebook. Oh, that was their earnings. Sorry. That's their earnings. Gap down and ran up. The earnings really wasn't that bad, but you can see ever since that initial break of 50, it's never been able to hold it. It keeps hitting 50 and pushing down lower. Okay, now it's down below the 7. Here it got up above the 7. It came out, you can also say it came up to retest 50 and never got to that level. The 50-day moving average there as well, and it pushed hard off the 50-day moving average yesterday. Sorry, 2 days ago. Very bearish price action. If this starts to break through 46, I don't think it's going to happen today, but watch this. If it keeps holding and pushing down below that 7-day moving average, if you get another strong day where it pushes down off that 7-day moving average, starting to break 46, likely headed lower at this point. I wouldn't be bullish right here on Facebook. I'd look more to the bearish side, but it's a little bit too early for an entry to the bearish side. Okay, with Tesoro, yeah, had a nice little run. Now, bullish consolidation here, what you want to do is when these stocks get a long ways away from the 7-day average, which this was, it doesn't mean just because it gets a long ways away doesn't mean it's instantly going to come back. Watch and see how it consolidates. Yeah, there's a little bit of a prior level here. I wouldn't call it much. It's not on a lot of volume here, but 56. Bullish consolidation on a stock that's made this kind of move would be down slightly, sideways a little bit, and let that 7 catch up with it. And as the 7 catches up with it, as it consolidates a little bit, and then pushes back up off the 7, then it's probably headed up towards maybe the $60 area. Right now, yeah, nothing. If I'm in a trade on it, nothing really to worry about. Watch it, but if it starts to break down below the 7, then I'd get out and take your game. I'm not sure when you got in or if you're still in it, but a lot of people got into this. It was a top 3 from, I think, last week sometime. Okay, it's done pretty well. Okay, everybody, I'm going to get off and start preparing my top three. Hang on. I got to check something out. Thanks, Mike. Yeah, pretty harsh action here on Strata Systems. Don't follow the stock much, but I don't know if there was some news on this or if it's just a lot of profit taking going on here. But coming down to the 110 level, that's a pretty major retest. It was resistance here. It got through it. Now we're coming back on it, but this price action right here is really bearish. I'd check to see if there's some kind of news on this action right here. It even had a bearish candle to start it off with here with this little, call it a hammer. It has the same principles of a gravestone doji as well. Lots of names for candlesticks. Very bearish out there. And Allstate. So this was on my top three a while ago. When was this? Last Thursday was on the top three. It did well, performed well. It's coming down today. Yesterday it broke below the 7. Today it's still below that 7. Um, so this is right on the edge as far as looking at this technically. I mean, on the edge. So a little bit of resistance here, right? 54. Well, we broke it on that push higher there, and now we're coming back to retest it. It's below the 7. It's just getting squeezed right here. Is it going to bounce up off of this? Is it going to run lower? If this ran lower into the close, if I was in it, I'd get out. If this holds 54 and finishes slightly above the 7, I'd probably stay in. But so far as the trend and everything, it's still intact. And you can draw the last little bit of a trend line has been right up through this area. It's still intact there. Okay, so this is kind of the turning point. If it breaks below the 7, it starts to trade below 54, I'd get out. If it doesn't, 50 and 54 holds, then it's probably off to another level. It's just right on the fringe right now. Okay, thanks everybody. I'll be on the little short video that I did a while ago. I know some of you might have missed that little training I gave. It's only like a 10-15 minute training. It's in the video library now on when stocks retest. Okay, you can feel free to watch that in there. If you have any questions, I'll be on chat. I just want to thank John. John's great to have on chat with us, Jeff's brother, and thank him. And I'll talk to you soon. Thanks. Bye bye.